Welcome to Coffee with Janis and Karen.
We're studying Deuteronomy, and it's already been so great for me.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
good.
from my
It's good.
understanding.
We're learning. We're
Yes.
learning a lot. This is session 3.
Yes.
For those of you that are keeping up.
And don't be scared because we're still in chapter 1.
Right.
But we had to do some background
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you missed 1 and 2, you should probably go back and see
Yeah.
it. Okay. So, again, Moses is giving some history now. It reminds me of my dad.
I know. I thought of
Yes.
him a while ago too.
Yeah. Here's the history that you people need to know. And he's reminding the Israelites of what's happened. So let's kind of touch on those high points. So we're Deuteronomy 1:15. Janice, what's he talking about there?
So it says, "So I took the chief of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over 50s, and captains over 10s, and the officers among your tribes."
Yeah. So what he was doing, and you probably remember the story about Moses' father-in-law telling him, these are too many people for you to have to judge when they have a dispute. And remember, he told him, why don't you get some people, some wise men out of every tribe, and kind of, so we have a government forming here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a good idea. And so basically they could appeal to Moses is what would happen. If they couldn't figure out what was going on, then they could make an appeal.
Yeah.
And then Moses would hear that one. So Moses was the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah. So that's what went out. And then, again, Moses is telling the history, and then he's talking, we started 19. The Lord commanded us, we sent out from Horeb.
Yep, there's that. Yep.
And we went toward the hill country of the Amorites. And so God's given you the land, don't be afraid. But then they came to Moses and said, what if we send out some spies and just kind of checked it out first? So remember, they had these people in place now to kind of help Moses know what to do, I guess. So they sent men to spy out the land, and this was a story that Annie liked to tell.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes. And so they went, and some of the spies, well, actually, most of the spies said, whoa, it's a good land, but we can't do it, right? But a couple of spies said, oh, the Lord, it's a great land. It's a really good land. And yeah, we're like, grasshoppers in the side of these tall folks, but we can do it. Because why? Because God's with us. Let's look at verse 26.
Okay.
But you were unwilling to go up. See, this is Moses talking again. You were unwilling to go up. You rebelled against the command of the Lord. You grumbled in your tents and said, the Lord hates us.
That's when I was reading this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He brought us out of Egypt to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us. Where can we go?
So negative.
Yeah. And then Moses says, don't be terrified, don't be afraid. The Lord your God who's going before you will fight for you, just like he did in Egypt before your very eyes and in the wilderness. He's trying to remind them. Yeah. In spite of this, you didn't trust the Lord your God, who went ahead of you on your journey, fire by night and a cloud by day, to search the places for you. When the Lord heard what you said, he was angry and swore, no one from this evil generation shall see the good land I swore to give your ancestors. Except Caleb, he'll see it. And then, of course, Joshua got to see it.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about Caleb when I read this. I'm like, what kind of, he must have been an awful great guy.
So, I really do like Caleb a lot.
Yeah.
Because he was just ahead of his time. And he really had faith.
Well, he obviously found some favor in God's eyes.
Yes.
Because
he was one of the spies that came back and said, we could totally do this.
Yeah.
And of course, there's Joshua, the son of Nun, was Moses' assistant. Okay, so he also was going to go into the to Canaan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But here's what happened. So after that, they believed the report of the majority instead of the report of the faithful.
Yeah.
That's when they did not get to enter into the promised land right there.
Yeah.
The Lord verse 42, but the Lord said to them, tell them, don't go up and fight, because I'm not going to be with you. You'll be defeated by your enemies. And Moses said, so I told you, but you wouldn't listen. It's a pattern here. You rebelled against the Lord's command, and in your arrogance, you marched up into the hill country. The Amorites who lived in those hills came out against you. They chased you like a swarm of bees and beat you down from Seir all the way to Hormah. You came back and wept before the Lord, but he paid no attention to your weeping and turned a deaf ear to you. And so you stayed in Kadesh many days, all the time you spent there.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really easy for me to look at them and go, really? You've seen all this stuff.
Yeah.
You have God lead you out of Egypt.
Yeah.
And promise you all this stuff. And even prove it. But it just won't obey. And then, you know, I think that's why it's so important for us to write down things. Because it's easy for me to forget what God's done for me.
Yeah. Well, remember, they would build altars.
Yeah.
You know, back then, when God had done something significant in their life,
Yes.
they would build an altar of remembrance.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, we probably won't go around stacking rocks up around our place, but we could write it down. You're right.
We could write it down. And, you know, some people have different ways of remembering things that happen in their life.
Yeah.
And so, because they don't want to forget.
Yeah.
And we'll get into a little more of that too.
You know, Karen, last night when I was out reading over this and thinking on it a little bit, I actually did stop, and in one of my tablets out there, I wrote down some new prayer requests, but I also, on another page, started listing things God had done.
Yeah.
And prayers God had answered.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we need to, I do think we don't want to be like those men that never went back and thanked God for what he did.
Oh, the lepers.
Yeah, the lepers. We want to make sure. And so if it's writing it down, or if whatever it is for you, to remember to thank God for what he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said this before, and it seemed rather arrogant, I suppose. But I had said, if you don't see miracles, it's because you're not paying attention. Or because you're not praying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And writing it down.
Yeah.
Because I am amazed when I go back and I look at the things that I've been praying for over the years.
Right.
And then they've got highlights. If they're highlighted, that means it's done.
Yeah.
Or I'll make a little note. And there's so many that I have to write on the backs, and I have to write real small, and I have to number them because I can't fit it next to the actual prayer request. So I have to write all these other things.
We did a study on prayer,
Yes,
and
we did.
we talked about sometimes you don't have because you don't ask.
Absolutely.
And so Karen and I decided we're going to ask.
You might as well.
We got a big
I
God.
do. And you know, the other day, Janice, I was praying, and and I hadn't forgotten. I just see this window in heaven, and I felt like it's open. And I just keep reminding myself the window in heaven is open.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was there wasn't anything in the window. It was just open.
Yeah.
So God's ready to bless us.
Yes, he is. He is. Yeah. Karen, I'm seeing things that I never thought. I may not even said it out loud to anyone, but it's been a desire of my heart. And I'm seeing those things happen, and I'm just, like you have said before, sometimes we're so busy enjoying our prayers or our desires or whatever. Our answered prayers. But I'm seeing some stuff happening that I don't really know that I prayed for. Maybe I did. But I'm just like, God is good. He is very good.
Yeah.
I mean, we walk through stuff in life. We walk through hard things, but like Job, on the other side, there's blessing. So
there absolutely is. So look at us already getting a moral application out of.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's what Moses was trying to explain to them and tell them and get them to understand. So can we learn something from Deuteronomy?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been really good. So this was Coffee with Janis and Karen.
Session 3. Yes.